still. And, you know, he'd sit down to eat, but then he's going on to his next item.
And
So then Maggie and I ate.
and do you all eat at the table? Do you eat at the den? What's your normal habit?
We would do both, but I mean, when we ate at the table, it was really sort of more formal or not formal, but just more of an organized thing. Our normal, what we would normally do on a regular evening is we would eat in the den in front of the TV. And that's where we ate that day. I ate on the couch, the table. Maggie had a little a TV tray that she kept over there, and Paw would usually sit in a recliner and eat off of the ottoman.
Was the TV on?
Yes,
Was that normal for the TV to be on?
yes. TV, if we were in the house, TV was on.
So what happened next, Alan?
Paw moved on doing whatever he was doing. I don't know if he was in the gun room doing something, or he was in his room doing something, or he was outside doing something. I actually thought he'd gone to the shed, but in looking at, to the shop, but in looking at the benefit of having these records that we have, I know he was still at the house or somewhere around the house doing something, but he wasn't in there with Maggie and I. But Maggie wanted to go to the kennels, and I had eaten dinner. I laid back on the couch where I was sitting. Maggie wanted to go to the kennels, and she asked me to go, and I didn't go at that time. I didn't want to go.
Why didn't you want to go?
It was hot. I just had a shower. I knew I'd end up doing more work, sweating more, and the dogs is always a chaotic scene, and I just didn't want to go right then.
Well, let me ask you, what had you done the previous days, like Friday and Saturday and Sunday?
Start with Friday or
Yeah.
go backwards?
Yeah. Start with Friday.
All right, on that.
Just briefly.
So 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th. So June the 4th, my dad was in the hospital in Savannah, Georgia, at Memorial Hospital. And I went down to visit him Friday afternoon, and I stayed with him in the hospital. I spent the night there. You know, he was real sick. I mean, he was having a hard time.
Did you get much sleep Friday night?
No, I mean, I had a real sweet nurse found me. At first, there was just a hard chair in there like this, but a nurse found me a soft chair, sort of like a recliner. So, I mean, I'm sure I slept, but I didn't sleep. You know, I didn't get a night's sleep. No, sir.
And then Saturday and Sunday?
Saturday, we had plans with Buster and Brooklyn. Y'all have heard about Brooklyn. It's Buster's wonderful little girlfriend. And Mags and I had plans with them to meet them in Columbia, to go to the South Carolina, it was a regional baseball tournament. And South Carolina was playing Virginia, I believe. So when I got back from Savannah and met up with Mags, at some point we headed to Columbia. So, I mean, there wasn't a lot going on in between there. We headed up to Columbia and met Bus in Brooklyn.
And then, did you stay in Columbia Saturday night?
We did. We went to the ball game, and I remember it was an evening game. We went pretty early and tailgated. Maggie had reconnected with a college friend who coincidentally had married a college friend of mine, and they had a son that played for Carolina. He was a first baseman, and a really good little player. And we met them and tailgated with them, and it was a lot of fun. They had a lot of the parents of the players that were playing for Carolina, and it was a fun time. We tailgated, and then we went to, and it was a night game, so we went to the game, and the game got over you know, it was fairly late into the evening. And after that, Bus, Brooklyn, and Mags and I believe we went to the restaurant in the hotel where we were staying, but we went, had dinner, and then Bus and Brooklyn went home, and of course Maggie and I went to our room.
And then get up the next day, and was there another game?
Another game the next day. That's right. And
then you, after that, you head back to Moselle with Maggie.
yeah, we went to the game. That's right. Mags and I go back to
Moselle.
Moselle.
And the jury's heard about, I think Ms. Rass talking about you bringing Krispy Kreme donuts to your dad.
Maggie loved to. She spoiled my dad, and always taking him something. My dad loved sweets, and she and I picked up donuts and took Krispy Kreme donuts to him.
And then y'all both spent the night together at Moselle on Sunday night. Did you both spend the night at Moselle on Sunday night?
Yes.
And then the 7th was a work day?
That's right. It was a Monday, June the 7th.
Hang on. I'll rephrase it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Was Monday the 7th a work day for you?
Yes.
Okay. And I just wanted to give that background. And so moving forward to when you testified previously about Maggie asking you to go to the kennels, were you tired?
Oh, yes, I was tired.
And you had just had a shower?
Just had a shower.
And you said that, well, did you go with Maggie to the kennels immediately?
No, I did not.
What'd you do? What did she leave?
Yes, she did. She left and Pawpaw was gone.
Do you know how she got to the kennel?
At the time, I didn't, but now looking at these condensed records and understanding the timeline, it's clear to me that she rode with Pawpaw.
Okay. And did you stay in the house?
Yes.
For how long?
Not long. I laid back on the couch, put my feet up, and like many times when Maggie asked me to do something that I didn't want to do or didn't start out doing, I changed my mind and decided I'm gonna ride up there. And I did.
And how did you get to the kennels?
I went on a golf cart.
Was the golf cart at the house, the main house?
Yeah. It was there most of the time.
And when you got down to the kennels, what was happening?
It's just what I thought it was. It was a little bit of chaos. I mean, it was clear to me that Max had just let the dogs out. The two dogs that were out were really her pet dogs. One is Grady. You've heard about a black lab. That's Grady. That's Buster's dog. And the other is the yellow lab that you've heard about. That's Bubba. Bubba was mine and Maggie's dog, but it was really mine, Maggie's, Bus, and Pawpaw's dog. It was a family dog. But Bubba's the dog I hunted. I mean, Maggie loved Bubba. She loved Grady too, but I mean, she had a special place for Bubba. But anyway, when the dogs first were let out, the first thing they would do is they would run. If you look at the overhead picture that you've seen, there were planted pines right behind the kennels. So you got the kennels and the chicken coop sort of form an L shape. And in that L was some planted pines. First thing the dogs would do is go out in that kennel, and Bubba and Grady, I think, learned this from Bubba, but Grady would do it too. But Bubba had to mark every tree. I mean, he would go and he'd do a little number on this tree and that tree. You know how dogs do, and it's marking his territory. And so that was the first thing those dogs did when they came out. When I got there, those dogs were in that area. So that's why I believe that it hadn't been long before they'd been let out. Grady was chasing guineas, which was a normal thing to do.
What are guineas?
Guinea fowl is a guinea fowl is like it's like a chicken. It's a domestic bird that we had them. They make a lot of racket. It's like I know this sounds silly, but it's like a guard bird. Because anytime, they just make a lot of racket anytime anything unusual is going on. If anything disturbs them, it could be a person, it could be somebody driving up, whatever, they're going to make a lot of racket. So Grady's chasing the guineas. Paul's fooling with Rogan's dog Cash. Maggie's just kind of standing there watching the dogs, which is normal, and they were in that place. As the dogs are out longer, they branch out more. But at that point in time, they were right there. So that told me they hadn't been out a long time. Bubba catches a chicken. I'm talking to Maggie for just a short time before Bubba catches a chicken. I take the chicken. Put it when Bubba didn't chase, these dogs didn't chase the chickens to kill them, and they didn't normally kill them. They did kill them sometimes, but it was about the chase with those dogs, and they were proud when they caught one. You could just tell by the way Bubba would prance to you when he brought the chicken to you. He was proud that he had caught it, but he wasn't trying to kill it, and so most times the chicken wasn't dead, and that chicken wasn't dead, but a lot of times they would be stunned and they would be just real lethargic. So you had to take the chicken and you had to put it up somewhere where, the chicken could be by itself for a minute and it would eventually, usually, come back to normal and go on about its, whatever a chicken does.
Did you get the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
I did. I took the chicken from Bubba and I put it on top of that.
Now we've seen this video of Paul with Cash, Rogan's dog. Did you know that was going on? What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I knew Paul was fooling with when I pulled up on the golf cart. Maggie was standing back sort of where the driveway would be. It sort of runs out at the feed room, storage room's what we call it. It's been called the feed room, but it sort of ran out. Maggie was a little bit further up where she could see back in that angle where the dogs were. Paul was fooling with Rogan's dog back towards the kennel. If I remember when I first got there, Paul was more in the driveway, but then I knew Paul was in the kennel fooling with Cash, yes. But did I know what he was doing? I didn't know exactly what he was doing, no.
Did you?
I knew he was fooling with his tail.
Well, was Cash in the kennel when you pulled up, you think?
Not when I first got there.
Okay. Did Bubba or Grady have any collars on?
Yes.
Both dogs? One dog? Do you remember?
I don't know about Grady, but I know Bubba had on his what we call a tracking collar. Paul, for his hunting dogs, Paul had a series of tracking collars, and I think there were 5. It might have been 6, but it's a tracking collar that had a device that would tell you where that collar was, so that Bubba was bad about, he would stay close for a minute, but then he would take off, and he especially do that on Maggie. He would take off and run, and so he had on a tracking collar that if he did that, you could, you could know, okay, he's, a half a mile down here. It's not going to follow him, but so far, but it would follow a good long distance, so you could go get the dog if he ran off, which Bubba frequently would do, especially when it was just Mags and Bubba. And so Paul probably would have been the one to put that on Bubba.
So you've got us where you've gotten the chicken out of Bubba's mouth and put it up on a doghouse or something?
I believe what I put it on, and I don't remember this, but I've seen pictures in all this, and I saw the chicken sitting on top of the what looks to me like a portable dog crate. Wherever it was sitting on there is where I would have put it up there. You know, have any reason to believe anybody else moved that chicken, and it ultimately, that chicken did die.
And what did you do after you got the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
I got out of there. I left. I went back to the house.
All right. Well, look, before we do that, we've seen the dog kennel video with Cash and Mr. Davis, and we slowed it down for him. Did you see the water hose in that video on the ground? Do you remember seeing that?
Yes, I do.
Was the water hose out? And
Obviously, in the video, but I don't specifically remember that, but I can look in that video and see it.
right.
But that's not something that I noticed.
So, but you've seen it in the video here.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. And then the two dogs were out.
Absolutely. Bubba and Grady.
Okay. And then you head back. How did you get back to the house?
Same route. I mean, the same route I'd come on. I came down the driveway, made a left on, you saw my route in the car. I drove that same route.
My question was obviously wasn't clear enough. What, were you in a vehicle? You walked? What mode of transportation did you use to get back to the house?
Same way I came. I went back in the golf cart. And it was the golf cart, if you remember, that Mark Ball testified that he saw where we normally would park it. You pull up, pull along the front entrance, and either you'd come in from the left and you'd go just past it and be on the right, or you'd come in from the right and you'd be just past it on the left. And that's where I got in it, and that's where I put it back.
Did you do anything else before leaving after you took the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
No.
We've heard about Bubba being stubborn. How long did it take you to get chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
Well, Bubba could be stubborn, but Bubba would listen to me. And another thing, when Bubba had on that collar, one of the other features of that collar was...
What did Bubba have on the collar, or was it Grady?
Bubba had on the collar.
Bubba had the collar.
I know Bubba had a collar on, and I'm not sure about Grady.
Okay, go ahead.
If I misspoke on that, there's no question about it. Bubba had on a collar. I assume Grady did too, but I didn't. I didn't. Even though I saw Grady, I didn't notice for a fact that Grady had on a collar.
Okay.
But he probably did.
So,
Makes sense to me that he did.
How long did it take to get the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
It didn't take long. Number one, Bubba's coming back there to show me, hey, I caught this chicken. So he's not running from me. He's proud of that fact that he caught this chicken. So, I mean, he comes right up to me. Bubba was really strong, but you know, you take your thumb when the dog's clenched and his mouth's a little bit open. All you do is you take your thumb and you push his gum in really tight against those sharp teeth, and his mouth opens right up. Took the chicken out and put it on, I believe, the portable dog kennel.
And then left.
And then I left.
Then leave. Okay. And did you go back to the house?
I went straight back to the house, to the air conditioner.
And what did you do when you got back to the house?
I lay down on the couch.
And then what? Well, I mean, was the TV on when you went back?
Yeah, the TV never got cut off.
So you went back to the house, you laid down on the couch, and then what happened next?
I'm not positive I dozed off for a minute or didn't doze off for a minute, but I got up off of the couch, and I made up my mind I was going to visit my mom.
Had you spoken to Barbara Mixon earlier in the day?
I did.
And
I talked to Barbara most days. If I didn't see her, I talked to her.
And what was your understanding of your mother's condition late on the afternoon of the 7th?
She was agitated, which she got agitated when my dad, we were putting my dad in the hospital, I mean, he had a lot, over the 18 months, 2 years. I mean, my dad was in the hospital. He was in the hospital a lot. And my mom, I believe my mom knew when my dad wasn't there because, I mean, she would get agitated. I mean, that's just the only term you can think of. She'd get agitated. She'd cry a lot. She'd be fussy when she normally wouldn't be fussy. I mean, I know Alzheimer's patients are unpredictable, but I'm convinced she knew because it happened frequently. And Barbara Ann told me, your mom's agitated, you need to check on her. I gave her medicine, she's resting. So it wasn't anything urgent, but she's resting. So what Barbara would do, and Barbara could handle her better than, I mean, my mama, we all love Barbara. My mama loved Barbara. Barbara could get my mom to do things that nobody else, when she'd fuss for anybody else, including me or my brothers or my sisters, Barbara could get her, you know, in order. And but Barbara had given her medicine and to settle her down and calm her down, and that would sometimes make her go to sleep for a little while, but then she'd be agitated when she woke up.
So did you go check on your mom?
I did.
Where did you park when you got there?
You saw the pictures. There's 2 exits off of that deck. One of them to the right, one of them straight out that back door. I would have parked to the left. If you're coming down these steps, if these are the steps, it would be to the left and back over there.
All right.
Which is where I always parked, or where we always parked, anytime you were going in that entrance.
All right, I'm going to stop there and ask Doug, if you don't mind pulling up States Exhibit 524, which is the GM OnStar data, and slide 38, which is in evidence. Can you see this the slide with those dots?
Yes, sir.
Alec?
I can.
And the red dots here at the that seem to be joined. Where is that in relation to your parents' house?
Where the arrow is?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's back in the area where I'm talking about. All right, so if you look in this picture, all right, you see the you see the open area with the green grass? That's the front door. Okay, yeah, right where that circle is. That's the front door. If you look closely at the house, you can see a big dormer right in the middle of the roof. That's right over the front door. The white thing to the left of the house, that's like a parking pad where the driveway ends. And there's a parking pad. So you if you follow the driveway all the way to the house, you're going to run straight into a carport. All right, by the carport door. Just to the left, before you get to the carport, is this area that you can see here. That's part driveway, mainly parking pad.
All right, I'm going to, Doug, if you'll pull up Defendant's Exhibit 130, which is in evidence, please, sir.
Yeah.
And from this photo, can you point out roughly where you parked that evening?
All right, this is the entrance to the right that I'm talking about. There's an exit and an entrance right in front of that door that you see there. So if you came down those steps, walk to your left, would be down there would be where I parked.
Oh, would you have parked on the grass?
You get on the edge of the grass back there. There's some grass there for sure, but it's not the area up here by the house where it's sodded and
sure.
this grass that you can really see in this picture. So it may be on the edge of the grass, yes, sir.
In relation to the satellite dish, are you looking at this photo, are you to the right of that?
Yeah, you'd be to the right of that satellite dish,
Okay.
yes.
And
I believe that satellite dish is right on the edge of the, you know, there's a hedge, and like you see the, I don't know what you call it, a border, like a border where the grass ends and the flower bed or whatever it is starts.
right.
I think, you can't see it, but I think that satellite's probably close to that border.
All right, well, let's,
So it'd be to the
Let's pull
right of
another-
that in this picture.
Doug, will you pull up a Defendant's Exhibit 134, see if this is a... So
Yeah.
is the door that you're talking about?
That's it.
The stairs that, are those the ones where you would enter?
Right. These are the steps that I used that night that we always used. And one of the reasons being is my dad, this door goes into what we call the breakfast room. The breakfast room leads right into the kitchen. And so straight through this door, all of the breakfast room is kind of to the left. That door goes straight through another doorway. There's no door there, but it's like just an opening. It goes into the kitchen. Immediately to your right of that entrance into the kitchen is the entrance into where my mom and dad's rooms were. So if you went through that door, you were in a little area that had my mom's closet, my dad's closet. A little bit further, you go into my mom's bedroom. If you went to the right, you would go. My dad and my mom didn't sleep in the same room at this point, but the bedrooms were, you know, they were back to back. There was a door going from one to the other that was blocked, but it was there, and then there was a bathroom. So this is really the part of the house that at their age was getting used. So that's why you went in this entrance, because my mom and whoever was caring for her was always in her bedroom, which would be just on the other side of the room that has these windows that you see to the right. All right, those would be the windows for the room where my dad slept.
Right.
And then my mom's right on the other side. The kitchen's right there. This is the part of the house they were always in.
And are you the only one that would pull up in the back like that?
No.
Is it common for your brothers and your sister to do the same?
Oh, we all did it. I mean, we all parked in the same way. If you knew you were going to the front of the house, or if you knew there was a crowd there, or for whatever, you may park on the driveway, but if you knew under normal circumstances, my dad always stayed in the breakfast room where he had a recliner and a TV. That's where my dad always was. My dad never, you would never go catch him sitting in the den up front or in a living room. He just wasn't up there. He was in this room watching TV, or either he was on this back deck. And my mom was either in her room, which was just off of that, or she might be in the kitchen or the breakfast room.
And when you got to the house, who was there? Your mother's house on the night of June 7th.
My mom was there, and Shelley Smith was there.
And what did you do when you got there?
The first thing I did was I knocked on the door. The door was locked. I knocked on the door. Shelley didn't hear me.
And then what'd you do next?
I called.
Called what?
I called my mom's house to let Shelley know I was there. Please come let me in.
Okay. And is that the house phone that's been referred to?
Yes,
Okay. And did she let you in?
sure.
And then what happened next?
I went in and I visited with my mom. I mean, you want me to go into detail on that?
Well, just briefly. Yeah, what'd you do?
I went in the house. In my mom's bedroom, my mom had a bed that was where she slept in normal times. It was like, a bed with, the poles coming out of the corner, a poster bed that coming out of the corners. And she had a bed like that where she slept, but she didn't sleep there anymore. But it was in the room. It was a hospital bed, So when you walked in the room, her bed was to the right. Against the wall to the left was a hospital bed, like a single bed, but a hospital bed, and a TV. And then there was a recliner where whoever was helping her would usually sit. So I went in and I sat down on my mom's hospital bed. And I just talked to her for a minute. My mom was awake, and I held her hand. And
What kind of condition was she in?
she was, her condition was not good at any time, but given her overall condition, she seemed to be doing pretty well. She wasn't agitated like I thought she would be, or like I was worried she would be, or like Barbara had described her at that point. So she wasn't agitated, and I just talked to her. Anytime we talked to my mom, we always tried to be real positive and upbeat, and I just talked to her. I just talked to her, made sure she was okay.
Did you stay seated on the side of her hospital-style bed, or did you move around?
I stayed there for a few minutes. I stayed there and I talked to her more than just a few seconds.
Right.
And then, but I didn't stay there. She was, she did look tired. So I got up and I went and I think I sat on my mom's bed for a minute to start with, and then I laid down on my mom's bed, which is, that's what I normally did when I went in there. There wasn't like a lot of chairs to sit in, and I just laid back on the bed.
Now, when
talked to Shelley, and we watched TV.
Now, when you're talking about your mom's bed, are you referring to her regular bed?
That's right. Not her hospital bed, not the bed she was in, but her bed, the one I was talking about with like posts.
Right. Let me skip something. Was Maggie planning to go over to your mother's with you that night?
No, she wasn't planning to go with me that night.
Okay.
No. In fact, Maggie didn't really like to visit my mom. She loved to visit my dad, and she loved to spend time with my dad. And she spent a lot of time with my mom when my mom was healthy. But, by this point, my mom, she was a shell. She was a shell of her old self. And
okay.
it was kind of sad to go and visit her anytime. She wasn't healthy, and Maggie didn't like to go and just visit my mom.
When you left Moselle to head to Alameda the evening after you'd gone back to the house at Moselle,
Say that again, Jim?
What exit did you use of the Moselle property when you're going to Alameda on the evening of June 7th?
I went out the main gates, which would be straight ahead. You've heard of the two gates. There's the shop entrance. There's actually several entrances, but the main ones we used, there was an entrance by the Dove Field, there was an entrance further down by Sawtooth Oaks, but the main ones we used were the shop entrance and what we call the main entrance, where the brick gates were.
Did you go? Why didn't you go by the kennels on your way out?
There wasn't a reason to go by the kennels at that point, and I was going to Alameda, which the main gate would be the gates that were closer.
Did you notify Maggie in some form that you were leaving to go to see your mom?
I tried to call her.
And did she answer?
No.
And what'd you do after that?
I think I tried to call her again.
And Did she answer?
No, she didn't answer. And at some point, I texted her after that.
Well, the fact that she didn't answer on 2 times, did that concern you?
At that time,
Right.
it didn't concern me at all. Number one, she was with Paw. So, no. I mean, number two, it's not unusual to not be able to get somebody all the time when they're at the house or they're on the property. I mean, you've heard all the testimony about how spotty cell service was. So, no, at the time, it didn't strike me as anything unusual.
Okay. Now, moving back to Almeda, you spent time with your mother, and then you left to head back to Moselle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you drive straight back to Moselle?
I did.
Now, Alec, there's some information from the telemetry data off your Suburban and perhaps some of this OnStar GPS data that indicates that at some point in time in your mother's driveway, you stopped for about a minute. Do you recall seeing that data?
I did.
What were you doing when you stopped? Do
I
you
was
recall?
I was getting my phone. That my phone had gotten. There was a console in the middle of my car, and my phone had gotten down in the console, between the console and the seat, where you couldn't get to it.
Okay. Were you, during that minute or however long it was, were you disposing of murder weapons, Alec?
No.
Were you disposing of bloody clothes?
No.
And your ride back to Moselle, was it, were you driving faster than normal?
I was driving however I drive, normal way that I drive.
When you got back to the Moselle property, how did you enter the property? What entrance did you use?
Came right back through the main gate,
And what'd you do then?
went straight to the house.
And when you got to the house, what'd you do?
I went inside.
Were lights on when you pulled up? Or?
Lights were on in the house for sure. I can't remember if there were floodlights on or not. I don't believe there were any floodlights on, but there were definitely lights. All the lights in the house were on, yes.
And when you, how long did you stay inside the house, roughly?
Now that I've seen the benefit of these records, I was in there several minutes.
Obviously, I mean, were you surprised that Paul and Maggie had not made it back to the house?
You know, I don't know if surprised is the right word, but I mean, I thought they would have been back by then.
Right.
You know, but I mean, did it cause me to go into any? It wasn't like I was shocked. But I mean, I thought they would be there. I mean, I distinctly remember, you know, I went and looked. Sometimes I was very hot-natured. Number one, I was hot, I was heavy, and I was taking pills. So I was always hot. Maggie was always cold. Sometimes she would watch TV. We had a TV in the hunting room. You see on the wall there. Sometimes Maggie would be in there watching TV, where she could have the thermostat different than we always kept it cold in the main part of the house. So I know I went in there and looked in there for her. It's not unusual for Maggie to be taking a bath and be not able to hear me. So I went back there and I know I did those two things and looked in those two places. And they weren't there. And so, you know, I knew they'd been at the kennels, and I assumed they were still up there.
So what'd you do?
I went to the kennels. I may have tried to call them. In fact, I probably did try to call them. I would think I called them. But as I sit here right now, I'm not positive, but I would think I did. Would think I tried to call them to see.
And now, did you drive down to the kennels in your Suburban?
I did.
What'd you see?
Saw what y'all have seen pictures of. So bad. Can I have some water? Yeah, I went to
Did you see them on the ground when you're pulling up in your Suburban?
I did.
And what'd you do when you came to a stop, Alec?
I think I jumped out of my car. I'm not exactly sure what I did, but no, I got out of my car. I know I ran back to my car, called 911. I called 911. I was on the phone with 911, and I was trying to tend to Pawpaw. I was trying to tend to Maggie. And I just went back and forth between them.
Were you going to Paul and Maggie while you were on the phone with the 911 operators?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And in a little bit, I'm going to play the 911 tape, but I just want to ask you, and you've told law enforcement it's been played here in the court. What did you do when you went up to Paul at some point in time?
Hey, Paul. Paul was he was so bad. At some point, I know I tried to check him for a pulse. I know I tried to turn him over.
When you say you tried to turn him over, why were you trying to turn him over?
I don't know. I don't know why I tried to turn him over. Me and my boys laying face down. And he's done the way he's done. His head was the way his head was. I could see his brain laying on the sidewalk. I didn't know what to do. I mean, I tried to turn him over. I grabbed him by the belt loop and tried to turn him over. And when I did, his phone popped out. His phone popped out. And I just picked it up and I put it right back there.
Do you have any idea how it popped out?
I mean, I know it came out of his pocket when I pulled on his belt loop. When I pulled him to turn him over, and it just popped out. And I mean, it popped right beside him. It sat right beside him.
Were you able to turn Paul at all?
I mean, I didn't. I don't know if I was able to. I didn't turn him over. No. No.
What side of the on what side of Paul were you when you were doing this?
I was on the side that was away from. I was on the side that was away from where my car was.
Okay.
I mean,
What'd you do with the phone?
I put it back on Pawpaw.
Do you know if you put it, you know which way it was pointing, upside down, downside, anyway?
I couldn't tell you anything about it. I know his phone popped out. I picked it up and I put it back on him.
Did you see any messages on Paul's phone?
No.
Did you go to Maggie?
Did.
Did you touch her?
I did.
Where did you touch Maggie?
I think I touched her down just around like, I don't know. If you ask me exactly, I think I touched her down around her waist, but I don't know. It was so bad. Excuse me. I mean, I know I went back and forth. I went back and forth between them. I know I did.
I'd like to play, Doug, the Colleton County portion of the 911 call, which is in evidence as Defendant's Exhibit Number 9. And Doug, this is the long version, the first clip, and stop it when I say stop it, please.
2021, 22 hours, 7 minutes, 9 seconds.
I'm still here, okay?
County Communication.
Congressman, I have an Alex Murdaugh on the line, caller from 4147 Mobile Road. He's advising that his wife and child was shot.
Okay, and sir, give me the address again.
It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad.
Okay, how did they shoot?
Alan, when you say I've been up to it now and it's bad, what are you referring to?
I'm talking about what I saw was what y'all saw pictures of. And I mean, it was bad. It was terrible. And when I first got there, I know I got out of the car. And I mean, I know I got out of the car. I mean, I knew. Got out of the car, but right at first, I didn't go. I don't think I went all the way to them. I think I ran back and that's when I called 911. And so I called 911, and while I was doing that, then is when I went to Maggie and I went to Paul. And so that's what I think I'm talking about.
Okay. Keep going, please.
Oh, no. Hell no. Do it now. It's fast.
Okay. How do they shoot? Do they shoot themselves?
Oh, no. Hell no.
Okay, and are they breathing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son?
My wife and my son.
Are they in a vehicle?
No, ma'am. They're on the ground out at my kennel.
Okay, and did you see anyone?
He shot in the head, and he shot really bad. He shot
Okay, where is he shot at?
Ma'am, I don't know, but there's blood everywhere. I can see his brain. Face down. I tried to turn her a little bit, but she's got a hole in her head.
Okay, is he breathing at all?
No,
Is he? Okay, do you see anything? Do you see anyone in the area?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No.
Is there any guns near them at all?
No. There's here.
What color is your house on the outside?
If that's what you're asking, they didn't shoot themselves, ma'am.
What?
Alec, right in there, you say the word here. What, are you calling anybody or anything?
No, I'm talking to that dispatcher.
And what did you mean when you said here?
If you listen to that call, one of the first things she asked me, one of the first things she asked me was, did they shoot themselves? And I knew there's no way. I mean, I knew they didn't shoot themselves. There wasn't a gun. They didn't shoot themselves. And she'd asked me that. And then she asked me another question, something about that. And you hear me say here, and then you hear the thing talking. I'm telling her here, and then I say something, and then you hear me say, if that's what you're asking. And I'm letting her know they didn't shoot themselves. I'm saying here, and then I give her an explanation, which you can't hear on that phone, but it's obvious to me what I'm doing. And I say, if that's what you're asking me. So, like David Owens asked me on August 11th, did I call a dog or was I talking to somebody? There was no dog that was out, and there was nobody there.
Well, let's talk about that briefly. Well, when you got there and you saw Maggie and Paul, where were the dogs?
The dogs were in the kennels. Dogs were in the kennels. They were wherever they were when law enforcement got there.
And you've seen pictures, and they called Dale Davis to the stand and talk about the hose rolled up. Did you roll the hose up?
No.
Did you do anything down there at the kennels when you got there other than call 911 and attend to Maggie and Paul?
No, I do know that I was trying to find a flashlight. I was trying to find a gun. Other than those things, no, I didn't do anything at the kennel. I didn't do anything with any hose. I didn't do anything with any dogs.
Was there anybody with you?
No.
All right, keep going, please.
It's white. You can't see it from the road.
Okay, is it a house or a mobile home?
It's a house.
Okay, and what is your name?
My name is Alex Murdaugh.
Okay, did you hear anything, or did you come home and find out?
I've been gone. I just came back.
Okay, and was anyone else supposed to be at your house?
No, ma'am.
Please hurry. We're getting somebody out there to you.
Oh. There. Oh, should have known.
Alec, we just heard you say, I should have known. What are you referring to?
I said, Paul, I should have known.
What were you referring to?
I was referring to Paul got so many threats. Didn't take serious. Think twice about. So I'm just telling him, Paul, I should have known. I don't specifically remember saying that, but I can clearly hear myself say that.
Okay. What kind of threats did you understand Paul was receiving?
I mean, Paul got the most vile threats. I mean, the stuff that was on social media, I mean, it was, I mean, you couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it. It was so over the top. Truthfully, we didn't think anything about it. I mean, it was just so crazy that, you know, we just, I mean, people talking about what he was going to get and how they were going to do this and get him, and I mean, it's stuff you really, I mean, we disregarded it because it's so over the top. Thought it's so over the top.
Keep going, please, Doug.
Okay, what is her name?
Maggie and Paul.
Maggie is her name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When's the last time you talked to Maggie?
Hour and a half ago, probably 2 hours ago.
What? Okay, you said about 2 hours ago you talked to them?
Approximately, yes, ma'am, approximately.
So, Al, you were asked the last time you saw them, and you said hour and a half to 2 hours ago, and then she followed up 2 hours ago. You just heard that?
I did hear that, and I said approximately to her question.
When was the last time you saw them, Maggie and Paul?
Right after I took the chicken from Bubba.
And the video we've seen is timestamp 8:44 p.m. Is that correct?
That's right.
So was it shortly after 8:44?
It was.
And
It wasn't long after that, because you can hear when Bubba gets the chicken, and it wasn't long after I took the chicken from him that I left.
And then you called 911. The records of that, but do you remember roughly 9:07 or right before 9:07?
I mean, I've seen the records and seen the transcripts, yeah.
And then this is, and the records of this, but this is some minutes into the conversation with 911 operators, correct?
That's right. Like,
Knowing everything we know now, I mean, was it roughly an hour and a half the last time you saw him?
it was. That would, with the time of however long it took to get to this point, however many minutes that is 10:10 to 10, however many, you can look exactly and see what point this is and know what time it is, but it's between 10 and 10:15. And so I'd seen them around 8:45, a little bit after.
All right, please keep going.
What they were doing at all?
No, I talked to her in person.
You talked to her in person?
And please hurry.
But we're getting somebody out there too. Me asking you these questions, don't slow them down, okay? And you sure they're not breathing? Is he moving at all, your son? I know you said that she was shot in the head, but what about your son?
Nobody. They're not. Neither one of them moving.
What is your telephone number?
942-1227. I'm going back to my house just to get a gun just in case. I'm about a...
Did you go back to the house and get a gun?
I did.
And is this the gun that you got? And how did you load this gun? What did you load it with, if anything?
That was gun, as best I can remember. I believe I got that gun off the pool table where you heard there was some other gun. I think that gun was laying with that pool table. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was on that pool table. Would have been the first place I came to. I know I was grabbing the first gun I could get. I grabbed a handful of shells out of the that I could get my hands on. I know the gun had a shell in it that I loaded, and I know I had a few shells. So,
Okay. Have you seen in this case where there was a 16 gauge shell put in that gun?
I've seen in the records and I've seen and heard in the testimony that I put a 16 gauge shell in the gun.
Is that a 16 gauge shotgun?
It's not a 16 gauge shotgun. It's a
Why'd you
12
put
gauge.
a 16 gauge shell in it?
I obviously didn't realize what I was doing. I mean, I know you can't put a 16 gauge shell in a 12 gauge gun and not. I mean, I've been hunting my whole life. I know you can't do that. That's not a mistake I would have made. That's not a mistake I'd have made under any circumstances other than that night.
Why did you go back to the house to get a gun?
I just didn't know. I didn't know. I mean, well, saw it. I don't know. I mean, it's just. I didn't know if somebody was still out there. I don't know. I guess I didn't know.
Okay. Please keep going.
And does anything look out of place?
Ma'am, not particularly, really, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Go back to where he said he's going to my house to get a gun. Just a few seconds back, 10 seconds maybe.
I know you're upset, Mr. Murdaugh, but I don't want you to get a gun and have a gun out whenever my officers get there, okay?
Back up some more. Back up some more, please.
My house just to get a gun just in case.
What is your telephone number?
942-1227. I'm going back to my house just to get a gun just in case. I'm about 100 yards from my house.
Alec, you said you're about 100 yards from the house.
That's what I said.
Is it much further than that?
I mean, as you've heard in the testimony, it's 1,100 and something feet, but
Okay.
I said I was 100 yards.
You were wrong about your estimate?
I'm sure I was wrong.
Okay. Keep going.
And does anything look out of place?
Ma'am, not particularly, really, no, ma'am.
Okay. upset, Mr. Murdaugh, but I don't want you to get a gun and have a gun out whenever my officers get there, okay?
I will not do that. He's been being threatened by, my son had a boat wreck. He's been being threatened for months and months and months. He's been hit several times, and he should finally quit.
Do you know who was threatening your son?
It's too many people. Over the phone. One second.
And you don't know the name of who was threatening him at all?
My son knows. And my son knows.
Your son knows who was threatening him?
I have another son now.
Okay.
All right, I'm going back down there.
All right, roll to the next tape of the same call.
2021, 22 hours, 13 minutes, 58 seconds.
Are they close, ma'am?
Yeah, they've been around with you ever since you got on the phone with me. I have multiple people coming out there to you.
This is a whole bloody phone.
Okay, can you do me a favor, Mr. Murdaugh, and turn on the flashers on your car so that way they can see where the kennels are? Do you have your flashers on for me, Mr. Murdaugh?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want you to touch them at all, okay? I don't know if you've already touched them, but I don't want you to touch them just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay?
I already touched them trying to get to see if they were breathing.
Not, Alec, that second clip starts at 22:13, 10:13, 58, and you're asked, you're told don't touch them. Had you touched them by then?
Yes,
And that way you told the 911 operator.
it is.
And can you say exactly during that 6-7 minutes when you actually touched them?
I know I touched Maggie. I touched Maggie several times, but I mean, I think I didn't. I don't think I touched Pawpaw, but 2 times.
Did you touch one or both of them before you got in the car and drove back to the house?
Yes. Yeah.
One or both? Do you know?
Both.
All right, keep going, please.
Okay. Well, I just don't want you to move anything just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay?
Oh. yes, ma'am.
He did.
Al, you informed the 911 operator that Paul had made reports of these threats. What are you referring to?
I mean, I just know that it had been reported. I don't know that, I mean, I don't believe there was any, like, formal police reports or that type of thing, but, I mean, it had been reported, and, I mean, it was well known.
Okay. So were you saying he had filed some official report when you said yes?
No, I never thought there was a police report or some formal report like that, no.
Do you know whether or not he made some type of report on campus?
Oh, I know he did.
What do you know?
I mean, I know that there was a time when he was asked to come meet with, God, I can't even remember the gentleman's name now, but I appreciated it so much that I never thought I'd forget it, but
Is it part of student counseling services?
yeah, he was the dean of students. But anyway, he reached out to Pawpaw and wanted to talk to him. And I mean, at first we were concerned, you know, why they want to talk to him? And I mean, even I believe I had Paul come talk to you about that because we were concerned. Well, what are they going to talk to him about? But when Paul and Jim got there, it turns out that it was really just I mean, they were wanting to make sure he was okay. But, you know, just make sure he was okay. And I know that, you know, they were aware of the threats or some level of threats. And so, yeah, I mean, it had already been reported to them.
Keep going, Doug.
Now, what's your son's name?
Paul,
Paul?
ma'am, I'm going to call, I need to call some of my family.
Okay.
On this.
Well, do me a favor for me. Whenever you see the officer or the medics, because they're all coming to you, can you put your gun in your vehicle for me?
Absolutely.
Okay. But we have them come in, turn on the flashes on your vehicle so they can see you, okay? You got the flashes on for me?
I did.
Okay. All right. Just whenever you see them, put your gun up for me, okay?
Okay.
How old is your son?
22.
Okay. All right. We're getting them out there to you, okay?
And I will answer you call.
All right.
So, Alec, did you call family after you got off the call with the operator?
Yes.
Who'd you call?
I know I called my brother Randy. I know I called my brother John. And I know I tried to call Roro. Well, Roro's not family, but I called Randy and John. And I called Randy and John.
And then you just mentioned Rodo? You mean?
Rogan. We called him Roro. I called him Roro.
Why did you try to call Rogan?
I mean, Rogan's house was like, I don't know, as the crow flies, maybe 2.5 miles, 3 miles. I mean, Rogan was like family.
Did you think he was the closest person?
Yeah, I just wanted somebody. I wanted somebody to be out there.
Had you seen Rogan's name on Paul's phone in any way that night?
No.
You called, did Rogan answer?
No.
Did you try him multiple times?
looking at these records, I believe that I did, but I believe some of those are like the FaceTime calls that are to Rogan. I mean, I'm trying to call him, but I don't believe that was me, actually. I mean, I didn't FaceTime. I mean, I didn't FaceTime people. So I think that's either me trying to call him and hitting FaceTime, or that's me hitting buttons or hitting the phone.
In the State's Exhibit 519, which is the condensed timeline done by Agent Rudofsky, there's an indication, Alec, that at 10:22:09 you opened a group text message from Michael Gunn stating, "She brought the heat from Miami boys." Were you reading text messages from Michael Gunn right after you got off with the 911 operator?
I heard them ask that question. I can promise you I wasn't reading any text messages.
There's also an entry, Alec, that says at 10:40 p.m. that you did a Google search or a Safari browser search for Whaley's at Edisto while your wife and son are laying dead on the ground. Did you do that?
No. Whaley's is a restaurant at Edisto that we ate at a lot of times. We got takeout from a lot of times, so I'm assuming it was in my search history, pulling up the restaurant, and I obviously was trying to call people or dialing, and I hit that. I wasn't doing any Google searches.
And is one of the persons that you dialed that night a wedding photographer?
It's a guy named Brian White. I saw that on the call log. Brian White's a guy who was in my, what do you call it, contacts, that is a videographer that I've used in cases. I haven't used him in 2 years. And he's a good guy, but we're not personal friends, so I certainly wasn't calling him.
So were you, what does that indicate to you, that those actions on your phone, how do you account for that?
Obviously they're unintentional. I mean, I'm doing something with my phone trying to call people, but I'm not trying to call those people. I'm not doing a Google search for any Whaley's restaurant, and I'm certainly not reading any text.
I want to ask you,
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have you go to the jury room for a break of about 10 minutes. Please do not discuss the case. You'll stay put, Mr. Murdaugh.